There's obviously something going on at Disney and it ain't good. How do we know this? Their stock is down nearly 40% year to date, and their latest box office movie release, Strange World, just bombed, losing them over a reported $100 million. And the truth is, this downward spiral is about what you should expect when you go out of your way to bend the knee for progressives while shitting on your core fan base that have supported you for years and decades and are the paying customers primarily responsible for your financial success. And I'll get to exactly what I mean by that in a little bit. But a company that's doing well doesn't fire its CEO on a Sunday and bring back the old one. So Disney fires Bob Chapek and brings back Bob Iger. In addition to this, they're talking about hiring freezes and cutting jobs to manage costs. Now, here's something that's interesting about this change in management, because Bob Iger was interviewed and asked directly if he would ever consider returning to Disney after he stepped down. And he said emphatically, no. Several times he was asked this, and each time he said no, as if it wasn't even a question on his mind. So it's a little more than odd that all of a sudden you wake up in the morning to go get a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit sandwich from McDonald's, and Disney has a new CEO by the time you pull out of the drive-thru. Now, I'm not going to get into the theatrics of what happened, but I will say that there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes. The former CEO said that he never quite felt like he was given the reins to run Disney as he saw fit. He felt like Iger still had a lot of control, even though he had stepped down from the position prior to Chapek taking over. They, and when I say they, I'm talking about the board of directors over there, but they were apparently still checking in with Iger on how to navigate the business while Chapek was actively running things. Which tells everybody that y'all didn't believe in Chapek and what the hell he was doing. Mind you, Chapek is a guy that Iger handpicked to take his place. He endorsed this guy. And now we're seeing this switch in leadership overnight. And people are seemingly loving the fact that Chapek is out and Iger is back in. Back in on a 2-year deal. And I'm not so sure that things will suddenly turn around. Now granted, Iger is the guy that is responsible for a lot of Disney's success during his previous tenure. I believe he increased their revenue by nearly $60 billion. Disney Plus launched under him. The acquisition of Pixar happened on his watch. There are a lot of good things that happened during his run, but there are things that I've seen that I don't particularly like with Disney these past couple of years. It's super obvious that they've been trying to get into this woke bullshit, and he's got his work cut out for him to try and turn this ship in the right direction, because although they have all these subscribers between Hulu, ESPN, Disney Plus, they have been losing money. And if you're like me, you're wondering how the hell is that possible? Well, it's been reported that their streaming division has lost more than $8.5 billion since Disney Plus launched back in 2019, and suggests that Chapek, the guy that they just gave the boot, was shifting around budgets from their original shows to disguise Disney Plus's revenue losses. Now, I'm an investor of Disney stock. In fact, it was one of the very first stocks I ever invested in before I ever understood how to read a balance sheet or understand the fundamentals behind a company. I knew that Disney was considered a legacy company, that they would be around to stand the test of time. And honestly, if you didn't know anything about Disney's record books and you didn't have access to their financials, you'd think that this company was the mother of all brands, right? And why wouldn't you? With brands like Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and 20th Century Studios, all products licensed under them, and that's aside from their classic cast of characters that are known around the world. In addition to all that, we know they've got Hulu, FX, National Geographic, and ESPN under their belt as well. So you know this is a behemoth of a company. So just off that alone, you think that this is probably a company that you'd want in your portfolio, right? But unfortunately, that's not how stocks work. Well, that's not how they're supposed to work anyway, because unfortunately, there are plenty of stocks that have thrived off of popularity alone. But I always say that when you're talking about companies and investing in businesses, it's important to understand exactly what it is that you're investing in. And as we take a look at the snapshot of the year-to-date chart, we see that this company is still down nearly 32%. to 40%. Now, we know a lot of this has to do with the pandemic's effect on their business, with theme parks being shut down during that time, which for them was a big deal, especially when they're spending so much money on their streaming service production. They really could not afford to take that kind of blow to that part of the business that was generating them millions and millions of dollars. It's reported that their Disney World park tickets alone, okay, made them $1 million a day. That's just from ticket sales alone. So that's not including revenue from merchandising, other services with the theme park provided through hotels and products or whatever else. So with $1 million per day being unaccounted for, you can see why the pandemic hit them as hard as it did. But the pandemic is largely over. The theme parks have opened back up and everything is in full swing when it comes to day-to-day operations. So why then is this stock still not recovering? Well, just like a lot of other stocks that are down, Disney is not beyond the reach of inflation and the effect that it has on the company. But beyond even that, I believe a lot of their losses are due to the lost revenue from their streaming service, Disney Plus. Disney Plus is not a profitable business for them right now, and that's just the reality of the situation, because they're having the same problem that Netflix is having, where they are spending a lot more money than they're making to produce original content, hoping that at the end of it all, these moves they've made will pay off. But with a lot of their content, you have this woke culture that has been adopted by Disney to try and appease every single group of people that exists, all the little minorities, to the point where it seems like a lot of their production has become a, how can we capture this particular audience, instead of focusing on creating great content. And it's very disappointing. And now it seems as if it's reflecting in some of their viewer base as far as reception goes. I'm a huge fan of comics, always have been, and superhero movies as well. So when you see content released with such terrible, cringe-worthy messages written into the script, it comes off as rather annoying and disingenuous instead of entertaining. This is especially true on the Marvel scene, apparently, where a lot of the original material written has been excised in favor of storylines and material that pander to these leftists. So as a fan, I'm looking at a lot of the content they're producing and asking, what the fuck are y'all doing? These guys had a Pirates of the Caribbean reboot series in the works starring Margot Robbie. Everybody knows Margot Robbie, right?
Oh my God, Margot Robbie.
A series that was largely watched by men. This is the same Margot Robbie that starred in the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey spinoff that absolutely bombed terribly at the box office because nobody went to see that shit, including women. And instead of recognizing that the movie was just a bad movie, the writers and actresses blamed men for not supporting it. There's been this agenda, it seems, to emasculate men in their movies, their TV shows, and productions, and it's mind-boggling why you would want to do this to your core audience. It's this kind of dumb, nonsensical bullshit that makes you question what the hell is going on over at Disney. Look at what you're doing to your core viewer base. And the fact is that Bob Chapek will get a lot of the heat from this, but in reality, Bob Iger is the one who sanctioned a lot of what's happening now before he stepped down. But listen, that's more so of a personal opinion, and I'm going off on a tangent. So let's just get into the financials and see what's going on here. Overview. We know they're down nearly 40% year to date. Revenue has seen a steady increase, so that's certainly a positive there, right? Shares outstanding, which is a basic measure of how many shares this company is issuing out. We want to know if they are diluting the shareholder. And this has been mostly flat, which is a good thing. That means they're not issuing more shares to their company employees or VPs as payment or compensation, making your shares and your piece of the pie smaller. So that's great. Last two things we want to look at is the total debt and free cash flow. So you can see their debt has increased damn near triple what it was in 2018, which again, the streaming business is not cheap. And lastly, the motherlode, free cash flow. We want to know, after everybody gets paid, after all the expenses go out that are required to operate, grow, and maintain the business, what are we working with? That's why it's called free cash flow. It's money that isn't tied up and doesn't need to be allocated anywhere else. Free cash flow right now is at $2 billion, but you can see the free cash flow has taken quite the dip over the last 3 years. But again, they're trying to grow the business through their streaming service and content production, so this can be somewhat expected. Lastly, let's see what the forecast is looking like. Let's see what analysts are saying. Average 12-month stock price is $143, so they're predicting a 45% increase from where it is now. A low target would be $106 and a high target $240. And this company, much like Netflix, is in the green, which means analysts believe that right now, currently today, it is a buy. One other thing to note, however, is that I personally do commend the board at Disney for jumping into action and cutting their dividend payout, which I know a lot of you may be like, what the fuck, what are you talking about? But trust me, I get it. I'm a shareholder of Disney and I certainly miss those dividends. But I would much rather they cut those dividends in order to get the core business back on the rails and minimize the damage done to their free cash flow margins. And that's what's happening here, or at least what I believe is happening here. That's why they cut the dividends. But if you believe, like I believe, that Disney is a legacy company and brand, something that will be around long after you and I are gone, then a price point of $96 to $98 where it is today doesn't seem like a bad cost basis to dollar cost average into at all. Now, they certainly have their problems, and I no doubt have my concerns about Disney moving forward. It's going to be very interesting to see what direction they take this company in over the next course of the decade. But you all take this information and decide for yourselves, okay? But those are my thoughts. You all, of course, can leave yours in the comments. Feel free to drop me a line. And as always, be sure to invest diligently, but more importantly, you guys already know. Later.
Let's go. Yeah, it's crucial. Tell me what would you do? Back against that wall, I'ma fight like Shaka Zulu.